How do you enhance your pre- and post-service announcement loops at your church? We'll talk about it today. Hey Ministry Leader, today we're going to be talking about how to use the real estate on your screens in your pre-service and post-service loops in the best ways. Now to be clear, we're talking about the media content on your screens as people walk into your worship experience and as they walk out. Before we dive into our interview segment today, let me walk you through a few ideas. First, you can use still graphics that are set to go to the next slide in your presentation app and then loop around to the beginning. This is how this element is usually done in your service. You put several graphics in a row and then they loop back around to the beginning. Another way of presenting your announcements is with short, self-contained motion graphics videos. These are your announcement slides, but produced with some motion to them. And as you can see on screen, these can start and end at the same spot, so that you can make several of these. And once you lay them in, you can put them next to each other in your presentation software, and they loop back around seamlessly. So this method takes a motion designer to custom make these for you. If you need some help with that, feel free to let us know. We would be glad to help you with that. Another idea for your announcement loop is to use footage from your church. As much as you can show the impact that your church is having, the better. Smiling faces, people serving, your local and global missions, all of that is great to show. Or you can also mix and match and even create some motion slides in your presentation app using footage. You can put footage as the background and then text as the foreground right in your presentation software, and you can use that in your announcement loop. Bottom line, my encouragement to you here is this: to start moving toward using some motion and video instead of just static slides. These will be more engaging and take that piece of your service to the next level. These are a few ideas, but after this break, we're going to be talking to a ministry leader in the trenches, just like you, who is doing announcements well. As a church leader, you've probably already realized that Easter is early this year, so now is the time to start planning. If you want to see more visitors at your church this Easter, I encourage you to download the free How to Get and Retain Visitors Easter Playbook from our partners at Outreach.com. This short PDF offers a wealth of ideas and information about reaching your community, welcoming guests, and keeping them engaged with your church. You can download it today at Outreach.com/playbook. That's Outreach.com/playbook. Hey guys, this week I welcome Brad Christian from Freedom House Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. Brad serves as the production director at Freedom House. And on this week's episode, I talked with Brad all about how Freedom House does church announcements. So they use still graphics, they use motion graphics, they use footage for their church, and they use a mixture of. Here's my conversation with Brad. Brad, welcome, man. Thanks so much for hanging out.
Hey, Carl. Thanks for having me.
So you are just right up the road from me. I'm in Columbia, South Carolina. You guys are in Charlotte. We've had the opportunity to hang out a little bit, man, and just grab a lunch together, and just had an opportunity to see Freedom House and all that. Man, you guys are doing such great work there. So appreciate what you're doing, and just you got a great team there, man.
Yeah, no, I love our team, our senior pastors, Troy and Penny Maxwell, and their creative heart, and just all the amazing stuff we're doing here in Charlotte and beyond. So,
yeah. So tell me a little bit, give folks a little background about Freedom House. How long have you guys been there? How are you serving the Charlotte area?
Yeah, we just celebrated our 21st anniversary here in Charlotte. Pastor Troy and Penny planted the church 21 years ago, and they have just a heart for reaching people and creating really engaging, creative worship experiences and conferences and events that help people just have a relationship with God and find freedom and the freedom that comes with that. And just love the pastor's heart here, seeing what they've grown. We're now up to 3 campuses here in the Charlotte area, and plus our online campus. And it's just been awesome to watch God work as Pastor Troy and Penny, they kind of will march a different drum beat occasionally with their things. Like, we don't have any sort of video venues at Freedom House, so none of our teaching is done via like a satellite. We have a teaching team of people who are at the different campuses, and from a production perspective, that can get interesting because we can sometimes have up to 4 messages on a weekend that are created. And but we do still value creativity. We value video in terms of a storytelling tool, which we use every single week because that's the one thing that does keep our campuses together. So live teaching, but we love awesome, great, compelling storytelling, videos, music, you name it. It's part of our experience.
So tell folks your role, and then kind of give us a snapshot of what the creative team looks like there.
Yeah, so I'm the production director, but interesting. My role actually, in most church contexts, would be more like a service programming director in terms of helping to just guide all of the teams to telling the story of our church and supporting the mission of our church. We are part of the creative team, our production team, because we're very interwoven in creating moments and experiences, creating content for experiences, the storytelling end of things, working really closely and hand in hand with our worship teams, and then also providing support as just a creative arm to all the ministries of the church as well, from our FH Kids to our ministries team here at the church, our outreach teams. We kind of serve everybody, which is the blessing of production. Is no silos for us, but does sometimes create some creative tensions, an avalanche of content that has to be processed. So we rely a lot on our partners and friends and contractors to help tell that story. But I've been here at the church for 5 years now, and it's been amazing to see kind of the process and just to see senior leadership who really are ready to really use creativity to engage culture, push culture, be kind of the tip of the spear in culture. As we, it's been a crazy couple years in that 5 years in terms of what we went through with the COVID lockdowns and things like that. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster, but I've loved every second of it, getting to navigate and experience life here at Freedom House, which has been great. Been a huge blessing for me and my family.
So you mentioned, so your creative team is both in a mixture of in-house and freelance contractors, partners, that sort of thing. We have the privilege of helping you guys out with some graphics and video work here and there. Tell me what the advantages are that you see of maybe not having everybody in-house. Does that cause problems? Would you prefer them in-house? Kind of give me the why you've structured it that way.
Well, Freedom House for decades now has been creating engaging environments, doing great storytelling. But I think the thing that kind of shifted in 2020, I think Kevin O'Leary on Shark Tank, he talks about how the creatives and his video teams and stuff were some of the lowest paid people on his payroll. And now the creatives and storytellers that can tell compelling stories in 60 to 90 seconds are now some of his top people, because it's just become an imperative part of how we work and engage in culture. And so that's put a lot of pressure on teams in terms of the needs of the world is out there. So I feel like the video storyteller is the number one thing that churches are hoping to recruit and bring onto their team. And so it's not just, a ton of people sitting around waiting to join a creative team at a church, especially when there's so many opportunities out there, because now everybody is creating dynamic, sometimes they're vertical video, which hurts us older guys, but people who are creating and telling dynamic stories, because the phone is just now, and social media is such a critical part. And so it doesn't mean that it's not important for us. So we do a ton of engagement with that. But it really, to rise to the level of the conferences that we do, the amount of weekend content, it takes a whole village of people to come around and support teams. And especially when I think it comes to bringing in help and working with partners like you guys, is because it ebbs and flows. The conference seasons, where we have run sheets with, a dozen different video elements, motion graphic elements, and you kind of need an army in certain seasons to be able to partner with you to just knock it out. Because if not, you're living in a perpetual, what I call whitewater season, where you really just can't see. And that starts to hurt your creativity. That hurts church morale. It starts to add to burnout when you can't just get your head above water. So by partnering with outside contractors, they have the gift of saying no, which is very powerful. It's a tension to manage when it comes to a creative team, because oftentimes some of our video contractors will be picked up and are working on a project in New York City and are not available for a weekend. So there is a tension that's created, because you have to be willing to plan farther out and to give way more runway than just if somebody's upstairs and saying, hey, John, can you knock this video out this week? If you have an in-house person, they can probably do it. There may be some frustration and some words exchanged, but if you're able to get enough runway, which I love our senior pastors and their vision, how they're already looking at next Christmas right now. So they give us a runway to work in, and I get not all churches get the gift of that runway, but if you can at least find a happy medium of a sort of runway, and you can start to bring in some contractors to help you, it will help the team get ahead and have a lot more positive environment for the churches to be able to get out of that white water and see. And that's where the true creativity kicks in. Because if you're just trying to survive and pulling off last minute videos, yes, you may have a few glimpses of creative inspiration that comes in those final edit bay late nights or whatever. But truly, you run into way more mistakes, more balls get dropped, ideas have to get cut last minute when you don't have that runway. And by, having partners that can help you get farther out and get stuff in, it does help kind of alleviate that tension, and you can dream bigger. You can have, more runway to, have bigger ideas and more dynamic elements in a conference or a service when you do, are willing to partner with people.
Yep. Good. All right. So I want to talk announcements. You guys do announcements in kind of a unique
Yes.
way. And so I want to talk through first, different ways that churches do announcements, and then how you guys have decided to do them. All right. So the most common way that churches communicate their announcements is still graphics that loop at the beginning or end of a service, and then possibly doing some type of live or host segment within the service. So let's talk about that announcement loop for just a second and how you guys do that. So who produces that loop of graphics at the beginning and end of your service?
Yeah, we've now moved. This is the we call it pre-roll, different things like that. It has many different names. I know a lot of church communication teams kind of write it off as like nobody pays attention to it, but it is a tool, and it's a tool that's in our belt, and we do like to use it, especially if we're targeting something that is not a church-wide impact, that not every single person in the church is targeted by. The pre-roll is a great opportunity to do that. We also target our first-time guest, because you have two types of first-time guests. The first-time guests who get there super early, are seated in the auditorium and are just hanging around waiting for things to start. And then you have your last-minute first-time guest that comes in after the first song has started. But you do have a portion of first-time guests that are seated in the room. So we cover a lot of our basics in it, who Freedom House is, our mission, our basic recurring events that we do are all in our pre-roll, in an effort to loop those people in, remind people, and to start planting seeds of things like our women's ministry is called Authentic. We'll have seasonal things that go into it like that. But it's all a part and a tool in kind of our communications tool belt that we have as a team as we're starting to kind of form. We're moving more to a campaign mindset when it comes to promoting events. And so it's not just make a video and put it in what we call our video announcements or the preview. We're looking at a holistic way of from text messaging to social media to promoted social media budgets to elements in the preview, live video on the internet, pop-ups on Instagram. But one of those powerful tools is to start planning brand awareness, or whatever you want to say, is having in that pre-roll before the service. And we have felt we're in a season right now to where we're not using still graphics, to where we're trying to add some kinetic energy and motion to it. So right now, all of our clips, it is Pro Presenter 7 is built for this, because they know a lot of churches are going to have something happening before the countdown. And so I love this new tool that they allow this kind of video feed just to exist and just is always running. We call it our CG2 loop is on our switcher that we can always just pull up and have running at any time. And it's a nice tool to have for that pre-service time. And we're also now in our announcement time. We have not announcement time, our countdown. We do run a 5-minute countdown like most churches, but we've realized that too is a valuable time that people are coming in, and we're utilizing that 5 minutes. It's not like a face to camera type, countdown like we've seen. I know North Point and many places a few years ago were like, that's a really critical time. And we can do like, I've heard it called like the 5 till or the 10 till, and you have somebody welcoming people. So we're not using that, but we will interject within our standard 5-minute countdown time, things that we can't fit in the service that we still want to start planting seeds and having some dynamic audio cues and things like that. And we've moved to a copyright free music, because I'm sure anybody's watching this that streams their services online has experienced how Facebook and YouTube will love to, take down if you have a Spotify playing in the background. But one of the benefits of that is we can have that music playing and layer audio on top of it, and it's a seamless transition. So it's a benefit of having copyright friendly stuff going out on our good live streaming friend Facebook while telling stories and trying to take advantage of that time when people are coming into the building. And we're blessed to have the TVs in the lobby and a lot like other churches. So, having that kind of, kinetic activity happening in the lobby really does help tell the story of your church well.
I'm glad that you mentioned motion graphics or kinetic moving images, because this is one thing that I'm encouraging a lot of churches to do as well, is if you can make it move, they're going to be more visually appealing. They're going to grab attention better, all of that. They're going to look nicer. And so the pre-reel can be one of a couple of different ways. I mean, you could use still graphics at Loop. Okay. Yeah. You could use all motion graphics. You could use a mixture of. You could drop in some footage. You could even make some slides move within your presentation software. So this is my opinion. I want you to get your thoughts on this. I think that we're ready in churches to move to a 2.0. I think meaning like out of more still graphics into more motion type stuff. I don't know if that scares people, that they just don't know how to do it, and so they could use a company like ours or others to make those for them. But how have you guys seen that to be more successful than just plain still slides that loop?
Yeah, and it is a harder jump to make. And I think, classically, when you look at church structure, even in larger churches, often your comms director, whoever's sitting in that role, usually has some sort of graphic design experience, but they don't always have that motion graphic experience. And so it's really easy for them to craft a very nice 16:9 with, beautiful graphic that, is interpreted from whatever they're doing. That's very safe and comfortable. And it gets, tricky when you're starting to, add motion to it and things like that, because that is almost a next level of skill set. And I think if you look at what churches are hiring right now, right behind filmmaker / storyteller usually is a motion graphic artist, which, I tell people who are in college now, if I was in college again, instead of 15 years ago, instead of doing video editing and, at East Carolina, my focus was, in film and things like that, I would have been like, no, you can learn that off of YouTube. I would have done a deep dive into motion graphics and been doing motion graphics 15 years ago, because that is just such a vital thing that churches are using in terms of all sorts of areas. From even lyric videos now are becoming a standard thing that people are integrating into their service because of the power of that kinetic topography being so much more dynamic than just the standard still image. So when it comes to your pre-roll, if you can make that shift, and we've actually kind of went full bore with it. About 4 years ago, we were tying it into the series and the theme of the series. So if there were if it was like a brush stroke, some very organic looking series, the whole pre-roll would be done in this kind of aesthetic and stuff like that. That was, not helping us get ahead.
Right.
And so we've actually
kind of do it every single time.
Exactly. And so we've actually, we may be rare, some of you may be coming out of this, especially probably if you were, I think you see this trend in churches that, a lot of churches, 5 to 10 years ago would change their set with every single series. I think now we're finding a creative kind of median of yes, we want to keep things fresh, but the average person who is now unfortunately attending church only once a month now doesn't need everything to be completely changed. And so I think we've drifted more into a happy median to where, kind of like when we'd update visuals and some bigger things and some kind of formats throughout the year, we'll update our pre-roll to a different vibe just to keep it fresh, but we keep it organic enough to where it can run for a few series, because we're very monthly driven when it comes to series here. So at the top of the month here, we'll have a new series. Well, I know other churches will run a series for 6-12 weeks. Here you can count on us having a new series just with the nature of our teaching team. So you're going to see a brand new series, but you will not see, thankfully, we've shifted to a very high quality, highly kinetic, very engaging pre-roll, but not always fitting the exact, demographic of the series. So
I think that's right. I saw that when I was working at large churches. I mean, even 10 years ago, that there's been a shift over the last decade to whether that be conserve resources, which I think is a fair point. Whether that be the trend in people not attending churches as much in person, I think all that plays a factor. But I would agree with you. I think set change, your pre-roll, I think your digital media for your pre-roll and even your countdown and stuff like that could be more church branded rather than series branded. Then like when you step into maybe the bumper right before the message, that's kind of when you step into series branding. You see that as well?
Yeah. The kind of final thing that I see churches going back and forth on, and we go back and forth on right now, our lower thirds are tied into the series. Because we, like so many churches, use an LED wall for most of our scenic. And so that helps have some visual continuity. But I have had a lot of good church friends who are moving more to a kinetic lower third, an animated lower third for name slides and things like that. And because they've done that, they've agreed to kind of land on a generic lower third. So not every series they're remaking something that's kinetic, because if you're like us, where we give ministry back and we have a whole lot of people on our platforms, that's a lot of name slides and combinations that, yes, there's some tools out there that can help you automate, and working with partners can kind of knock out, but that's
still,
kind of
that's
the
a
last
lot.
frontier.
That's a lot
for
of
us
work.
Is a lot.
Is it really having the impact for the amount of work that it takes?
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about how you do your announcement spot. You call it the preview, right?
The preview. Yes.
So tell me that process. What's that process like of gathering all the information, creating that? Paint a picture of that for me.
Yeah. So, like I was talking about earlier with Freedom House being multiple campuses where we have live communicators at every single campus, often it's a challenge because our senior pastors cannot be at every campus every single week. So the only way that we can have a consistent moment of communication utilizing our senior pastors or certain people on the team or a certain story we want to tell is through video, which is funny that we don't have video venues, but we love video as a storytelling and promotional tool. And so, yes, I think every creative team manages attention around when it comes to promoting things. It's like, well, make a video. And in our world, we have a video element for every single week that we're creating. So what we're trying to do is to drive, and we're moving our preview or announcement to be more of something that ties in the senior pastors every single week, that ties in global things that the church is pushing for together. And so we'll lay out, but it's always attention of how do we promote things? How do we use humor? How do we, tell serious stories? How many times do we tell inspirational stories? And video can do all of those things. And it's a seasonal thing that we go through in terms of how are we telling the story. Out of COVID, we found that we just had so much because Freedom House was very passionate about being in person, was getting people to come out of their bunkers and say, hey, no, there's a biblical mandate that we come together and worship together in person and have events together and break bread together and that in-person connection. And so we had a ton of information to relay, and relaying that information, we actually used a ton of motion graphic centered announcements that were very clear, that could clearly show dates, times. We used some voiceover talent, mixing the two together to kind of tell a story, with sometimes with B-roll, sometimes just with, kinetic animated elements of a graphic type deal. And so we've done seasons of that. We've also done a lot of face-to-camera seasons, and to where we are having that direct appeal from one of our pastors talking directly to a camera, and having that personal connection for things that are very important. And now that we are back to, have a couple years of full events that can be captured in B-roll, we can now actually show events as well and show highlights from events, and people can see, oh, this is what that looks like, or, oh, remember that baptism experience we had, or, oh, we have this class series that people go through, and they can kind of see a kinetic element. So it's very seasonal for us. It's not an exact science. We have some things that people remember. Humor is a great tool and is something that, people love and can be very engaging. But sometimes when you have so much information to relay, it can become a tension in terms of like going from a really silly, goofy moment to a, substance abuse story of, redemption and things. We have to be careful with the left turn, because local news can do that very easily. You watch your local news, they'll tell a happy story, and then they just change a camera and are like, 4 kids were killed today on a school bus accident, but they can get away with that. In our services, we're not a newscast. This isn't like a news bulletin, even though in COVID we played off of that and doing weekend update type style news and stuff to just because people needed to laugh in that season, and we needed a moment of levity, and but it can be a part of the storytelling process, and of course every single ministry, and this is for any creative team, any comms director is going to be managing the tension of people want their stuff in the weekend experience.
Yeah.
And just building trust, building bridges. Why the idea of campaign is coming out for us in terms of helping people paint a full campaign that actually reaches people. Because, if we have 17 things in our video announcement, like you could quiz staff people at your church and they wouldn't be able to tell you what was in that video that played. So right. It's a unique experience of trying to navigate and manage tensions between teams and have honest conversations. But it can be a really uniting tool that every campus of our church experiences the same moment every week.
So walk me through the process of gathering that information from ministries, maybe how to tell them no, or what your communication forms look like, that sort of thing. What's the weekly process of how you put it together?
Yeah, we have our project manager. We have a project manager on staff, and he does a great job. We call him our air traffic controller because he is helping to get all these planes landed. And there are seasons where we have planes headed for every runway, and we have to kind of get them in order. And so that we have a whole project request system. Asana is our best friend in terms of managing project requests and things. And Asana does a great job with forums to where ministries are, depending on the level of the project, 12 weeks out, submitting, hey, this event is coming up. Here's our needs. Here's what we need. And then our project manager then takes that and take certain parts of it. We take to the creative team because we've learned that, it's hard for somebody who's in a people-driven like ministry position. They're not in a creative position. If they're on like a ministries team, for pastoral care or another type of, people-driven ministry connections team, anything like that, they're good at connecting with people. That's their job, is they are people connectors. They're not creative people in terms of like, how can we tell a story about connections and things like that? And so this is when our creative team can come in and provide support by, saying, here's graphic design that supports your idea. Here's videos that capture that idea. Here's a story that we know of this person who has this amazing testimony that would support why a parking lot team is critical, because, they can tell a story of when they came into Freedom House. They, in the parking lot, had a smile and a hug from a parking attendant, and that set their trajectory off to meet Jesus. And we can help with that. But somebody often in ministries, they're sitting like, we have 38 planning center positions to fill. Hey guys, we need an announcement. Please join our parking team at Freedom House, and that is clearly not an effective way of getting people onto a parking team, because people respond to vision and not need.
Right.
And so creative gets to step in and kind of be that bridge builder to tell the story of why a parking team is so important, and see this life change, and make sure it's visually appealing, and have the amazing B-roll of, the smiles and hugs and waves that happen on a Sunday morning. And so that's where our creative team can come in and help support. But once again, this comes to runway. And so you noticed I mentioned 12 weeks. And so that is a continual tension, because
everybody wants their thing in there.
And things happen, and last minute things come up, and this mission project got announced, and that's where sometimes the creative team has to help people breathe, pump the brakes. And our team, we work together. Me and my service programming role, working with our project manager, we kind of come together to help all the planes get lined up so we don't have to go into full ground stop. We keep seeing the ground stop in like Southwest, back in December, literally they had to like park. We never want that to happen, and really can't happen, but you can get to the brink of almost needing that to happen just to get things reset. And so that's kind of our creative team's role of crafting that and getting those planes landed.
So there are some churches that have, in fact, I was at a church that we actually killed the announcement video because it wasn't effective with our congregation. People weren't engaging with it. We couldn't find a good place in the service to put it. That sort of thing. And it was taking so much time during the week on our creative team that we just put a stop to it. So how is it? I mean, and so I see churches all over the place that, sometimes this announcement video style that you guys are doing actually really works, is effective, is very effective for multi-campus, that sort of thing. And then I see some churches that have moving away from it, that sort of thing. So how is it, and why is it effective for you guys? Why are your people, or how are your people engaging with this style?
Yeah, no, and it's a tension that we look at regularly, and I think part of our direction we're moving with it is looking at it more as a storytelling device rather than a video announcement. Because video announcements truly is basically, I grew up, in North Carolina in the 90s, and your announcements were a guy getting up to the pulpit at the top of the service and just reading stuff off. And it was terrible. And that's honestly, basically somebody just had the bright idea of like, well, we could do that on video. And a lot of church announcement videos are some dude reading off stuff, and it's not telling a story. And so really with our preview, as much story as we can interject into it, and using it as a storytelling device is really where we're going. And that we're looking at moments and we're crafting campaigns. And as we move ministries, we are engaging people in many different ways and different moments, and using creative moments to engage people with things. And for our baptism, we do baptism twice a year. With the big baptism service, and we wanted to promote that. And we knew that we'd be very limited in just having a announcement. Hey, we're getting come get baptized Sunday at this whatever. And, we have beautiful B-roll and motion graphics that's over it, but we wanted a way that we could better tell that story and engage people multiple ways. So this was one of the first things we developed a campaign for. And so the first week we had more of a conventional, hey, baptisms are coming up. Here's the what, when, where, that side of things. The next week we did a roundtable where we got some of our ministries people, and we tackled hot topics when it came to baptism, because we have people that come from all over, many different backgrounds here, people that have been sprinkled, people who have lots of different definitions of baptism, people that believe that children need to be baptized, things like that. So we wanted to be able to answer our questions and share our mission as a church. So we filmed a roundtable in our podcast studio with some of our pastors, some of our next gen pastors, our ministries pastors came around and like, hey, here's the things that we deal with baptism, want to help people walk through. And we utilized that roundtable conversation in the preview for a week, in a highlight to it, and then link to a video that played on social media and is on our baptism page, where people can do a full half-hour deep dive into everything Freedom House believes about baptism. And then the third week of it, we plan to have a creative element in the service where we use testimonies, and it was a musical element where the band and testimonies were interwoven. And so that created a narrative that drove towards this Baptism Sunday, rather than just a guy standing up next to the screen. Hey, baptism's coming up in 2 weeks. Hey, baptism's coming up in 2 weeks. Baptism's coming up in 1 week. Because truly, we are in a world of scroll to where we're at the point with social. In the room, we have a few more seconds, but with the scroll, we have people who really only give you between 8 to 12 seconds before they swipe to the next Instagram reel. And you almost have that in some ways in the service. And, you can watch the cell phones come out when you're not being engaging, because people just disconnect. And
I think you make a great point that if you can shift your thinking from more of you're delivering a list of announcements to a story device where you're sharing the stories and getting people excited, a preview of what is going on in the life of our church, treat it like that. I do think there's a mind shift, and I think there's an attention shift. Oh, I'm jumping on with that vision, or I can relate emotionally with that story, as opposed to, okay, I'll just put that on my calendar. I think both can happen at the same time. I agree with you. All right, a couple last quick hits before I let you go. So talk to me about choosing talent for your announcement. Is it 90% your pastors or 100% your pastors, or who is the talent on screen? How do you choose them?
Yeah, we're now in an interesting season where we had not used a lot of our pastors in it, but it kind of hit us with the uniqueness of Freedom House, and where we don't have that weekly touch point with the pastors, that we did need to increase that. So definitely when we come to certain milestones in the church of importance, even how we approach for a long time with our, what we call our membership class, Get on Track. And so for the longest time, we'd be like, hey, you want to learn more about Freedom House, blah, 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 come to this membership class. It hit us recently with that invitation from the senior pastors somebody who wants to become part of Freedom House will hopefully have met them, through hearing a message or something like that, through their kind of testing out Freedom House phase. And that's a very powerful invitation when it comes from a senior leader saying, hey,
Right.
we want you to join our family. And so in that case, we're upping more of our communication strategy, utilizing the senior pastors just with the uniqueness of Freedom House, because we don't have that. A lot of churches have that moment where, the senior pastor's like, hey, we're welcoming people watching at our Waco campus, our Frisco campus, our Dallas campus, or whatever, and usually you'll see sometimes they'll slip in a little pastoral, like, I love our men of this church and we're coming together for a conference, that you see that a lot in multi-site. We don't get that opportunity. But we can if we want to have our senior pastor, interject some vision there. But outside of that, yes, we do want to, because we have such a dynamic teaching team, we have so many communicators and we're constantly raising up communicators. We're hoping that our preview can be a venue for people to be able to be raised up to be, even though, yes, there's a little bit different, talking to a camera versus talking to an audience and things like that. There's dynamics, but the same principles still apply. So it's something we've been engaging and helping to connect with. And we're blessed to have a large group of people who are gifted at communicating with people. So that helps.
Yeah, I do think that's an advantage that you guys have in that you have a teaching team. You have multiple people on staff that would be a great choice for on-camera talent. Okay, last question for you. Why doesn't, and if you're watching this podcast, you've been seeing a TV behind Brad with clips of their services and videos and stuff like that. So obviously you can see the quality of visuals at Freedom House. So Brad, why does high quality mean so much to you guys? Why do your visuals matter?
Yeah, a lot of it comes back to our senior leadership's vision, and our Pastor Penny Maxwell. She kind of is at the helm of our creative team, so she does have some basic guidelines when it comes to content in terms of being excellent. Because I think all churches want to be excellent, but we do have a particular style and imprint and thumbprint that kind of sets us apart. Some of it is influenced by some things people are familiar with, that we want all of our graphics and things to be able to reach multiple generations and will have an impact and be visually relevant to what the younger generation can see and understand. Because usually if the young people will pursue and be it fits their graphic taste and a visual pleasing thing to them, older demographics. This is why in TV, my background was in TV. The demo is 18 to 30. When you hear the demo referenced, they don't, advertisers don't care what older people watch, which is kind of sad to me, because now that I'm outside of the demo, I'm like, why don't people care what I like to watch on TV? But apparently we just lose influence when you get over 30. But I think it's because so many people over 30 will still follow what that 18 to 30 demo will follow. And it's more now than ever. I'm seeing everywhere. There's so much noise now that people are having to wade through. And things even like, local restaurants and stuff have gorgeous social media and beautiful photos and things like that. And so by taking art, taking creativity, and being excellent and engaging and visually stimulating in what we do, it is a missional purpose behind it, because we're telling the most important story. We're way more important than the local taco shack down the road. Our graphics need to be way nicer than them, but sadly right now food trucks and local restaurants have better social media teams and storytelling teams than the local church has. And so their message is getting presented louder and clearer, and people are more fired up about Taco Tuesday than they are what's happening in the local church where like
so
real
you
life
think
change
that
is
the
happening.
visuals, the quality of visuals directly correlates to the story? You think people,
Yeah.
how you present the gospel equates to how people receive the gospel?
Yeah, you're telling a story if you mean it or not. Everything you do in terms of how the graphics are presented, how a video is created, the beat of it speaks way more and is way louder and carries more message than you think it does. And there's visual language behind it, and we want it to always be pointing to something that makes an eternal purpose. But the point of the local church, we have to operate in a way that helps with whatever we do be the best it can be, because we are called to reach others. We're called to not just be, because for internal communication and things like that, if we were just a holy huddle, just a group text message is all you need to, let people know what's going on, even though people would probably shoot you for a group text if you had 100 and, had 2,000 people in a group text. But, you don't need style and pizzazz or anything for that. But when you're telling a story, and Charlotte, it's crazy. Charlotte is, we're the home of Billy Graham. Where so many of the biggest church movements and revivals have kind of started here in this area, but we're in a season again to where you think, oh, well, Charlotte's got a church on every corner. And even in Charlotte now, the vast majority of people who live here, you talk to them, are completely unrelated to a church. Church isn't even on their radar. And if what we're creating visually and the stories that we are telling is something that can even be a blip on their radar that can help point them to hope when they're in a season of darkness, if there's anything that we can do to just be a little bit of light, and that's what we're seeing at Freedom House. We're seeing so many people who were like shaken up with COVID, and they were like, something's not right. And like what the world is telling me is not right. I used to go along with what the world said, and I was like, I'm bored with the world. But COVID's like shaking up a lot of people, and they're kind of like, this isn't, the world stuff is a lie. And Freedom House, we were blessed and ready and had creative teams ready to tell the story of the church. And we were able to be that light. And we are seeing people come in who have no church background, who have never, met, had a relationship with Jesus before. A lot of people that that were in like a Catholic church or something that you were more culturally religious and not actually having a relationship with Jesus. They've woken up and they're walking in our doors saying, hey, there's something more here. And we're able to tell the story of hope, tell the story of redemption, tell the story of something real by what we do visually. And having it be excellent is just a storytelling device that makes it more impactful, that can help keep attention. And it's the most important story ever. So we should put as much effort. There should be no reason that the Walt Disney Company or Marvel or Paramount Plus or whatever, sure, they're all storytelling companies, but what are they telling the story of? They're telling stories that are temporary. Our stories are impacting, generations of people. We're seeing people come out of generational curses and heartbreak and things, and seeing people walk out of addictions, walk out of things because of what the hope of Jesus has. And we're just, just telling that story is more important than anything else out there. So
true, man. Thank you for this. It's great insight, and man, you guys are doing just incredible work at Freedom House. Love getting to know you and your team, and you guys keep crushing it for the kingdom. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Carl. We love everything that you guys do. It's awesome to work with y'all.
Hey, ministry leader, Matthew here from the Church Visuals team. I have the privilege of leading our ready-made media team that serves you guys through our library of media content. I just want to drop you a word of encouragement today. You are doing a great job. And as Paul reminds us in Galatians, I want you to not grow weary of doing a good thing. The way that you serve the kingdom matters, and it's making a difference. The way that you present the gospel, it matters. And that's why we are so passionate about partnering with you to supply you with high quality visuals. We are here to serve you, and it's our pleasure to do so as you serve your community. Your visuals matter. And we're here, we're cheering you on, we're praying for you. Keep up the great work.
Hey ministry leader, here's your church visuals tip of the week. Start adding motion and video to your announcement loop. If you want to reach the people you want to reach for Jesus, your visuals matter. I'll see you next week. Your Visuals Matter has been a podcast presentation of Church Visuals. Executive produced by Carl Barnhill, edited by AJ Schubert, title and show graphics by Angie Lomas. For more resources to help you visually communicate the gospel, visit churchvisuals.com.